I crawled out of there. She came back and screamed at me. If you don't stay in there, I'm going to strap you in that chair and lock the door.
One sat on my leg, one sat on my other leg. People sat on my hands. One person sat on top of me and told me, you don't do this, you don't do that. You must listen to us, do what we say.
He slammed me up against the wall, arm barred me across the throat and lifted up so I couldn't breathe, and then whispered, how am I supposed to talk to you nice and slow so you can understand?
One particular day, we went to see my son, and we were going to give him a haircut. So we took off his shirt, and he was covered with bruises and abrasions, 15 to 20 on his body, everywhere.
Yet rest ignored me as I'm locked away in hidden rooms that pointed loudly, I'm worthless. I wanted to tell the agony, but I could not.
I was in a segregated classroom in 2nd grade. It was in a regular school, but it was built special for all the kids who were physically disabled in our whole city. I was 8 years old when they put me in a room built with a wooden chair bolted to the floor, chair head straps made of leather, and buckles. The teacher read the same book all the time. She read it every day. So I was playing with Sarah. The teacher got mad. I was small, maybe 30 pounds. No warning. She just grabbed me up. She put me in this little closet room. I was so mad I crawled out of there. She came back and screamed at me. If you don't stay in there, I'm going to strap you in that chair and lock the door. She locked us in there. I was so scared. I finally escaped to the nurse's office. I was so traumatized. I got to use the phone to call my mother. When she answered, I could not talk. She knew it was me though. She was close and got there fast. She says, when she found me I was crying. I was curled up begging to go home. When I was in school I did not have a speech-generating device. Good evaluation would have made that happen. I tried to tell my mother. She did not understand me, or she thought the teachers knew everything. She did not save me until the next school year. One morning, I got mad and said I wasn't going to school. When you have problems with talking, you just say no. In the loudest and easiest way possible. I yelled and screamed in the parking lot. A lot of people came to watch. But it was the only way I could say something was wrong. Violence by children with severe disabilities is almost always in response to abuse. It was awful. The things that happen in segregation. Later in the year, my mother finally saw the teacher next to our class abusing a 5-year-old boy who got put in the closet a lot. She turned in his teacher, but did not realize that what she saw was normal and happened all the time. The problem is that we all want to believe the world is a good place, especially children. So when torture happens in front of us all, people mostly make up a story in their head about the victim having done something wrong. Then people look at the victims differently. They see us as bad or dangerous.
We go through the back of the school so none of the kids can see us. So if the teachers do anything to us, they can't see us because there's a bunch of buildings surrounding our isolated playground. And if you don't listen, if you do not do whatever they say, they haul you off to what I call a white room. I'm in there for about 6 hours a day, and then I come out. And then when I finally come out, I sometimes don't get to eat. The white room was right next to the kindergarten's room, so if you screamed, they would just think you were another kindergarten. The room I was in had a cabinet, cinder block walls, a glass pane window with bullet holes in it. Well, if I don't do anything to say, they will stray me, put me down on the ground. It was the teachers plus 4 A's. Every single time they restrained me was 5 people. One sat on my leg, one sat on my other leg, people sat on my hands. One person sat on top of me and told me, "You don't do this, you don't do that. You must listen to us, do what we say." And then if you continue trying to get out, they will flip you over, put you down on the ground, and they will put your hand behind your back before it comes to its breaking point to where it can snap. Usually I crawl up into a ball, I jump, and I run. But they usually do catch me. They put you inside a restraint harness. It's basically a giant blanket that they wrap around you that is supposed to make you feel better, but I just fell over and hit some other stuff. Sometimes I get restraint 2 times, sometimes I get restraint 3 times a day. When I saw kids watching what happened to some kids, they put paper all over the windows. Even if you did want to get out, I'm pretty sure there were some bars on the back windows. They videotaped you and they tell you what to do when they restrain you. Don't do this, don't do that. Of course, you're too traumatized to remember. It's terrible.
Last year, in the mid-year, is when the incident occurred. He came home with head trauma, and he had injuries to his face from restraint. You are hurting our children by twisting their hands and inflicting pain on them in the disability classrooms, which, by the way, are not being surveillanced. There is no surveillance, there is no proof, and there is no way to determine what happened. I don't see why they should not be dispersed throughout a general education setting. I don't understand why it was separated in the first place. If you have to give warning, like 24-hour prior notice to go and observe the classroom, that's not a good sign. Because a good, healthy environment that has emotional structure for a parent will be welcome for participation and involvement. We learned the hard way, and that's hard to deal with, but we can also improve and correct the problem and hopefully have a better future.
But when I want to go back to school, but I'm afraid the same thing might happen again and I won't wake up.
At my old school, from 2nd to 7th grade, I was like an awesome student. I had great grades. I had perfect attendance awards from 2nd grade to 7th grade for every 9 weeks. I mean, I excelled in history because that is part of my Asperger's syndrome. I have a photographic memory. That's also a reason why I can't forget what happened to me in school. When I was 13, my family moved 7 miles away to a new school district. I corrected a teacher who gave out the wrong information about Ohio history. After I corrected him, he called me the R word and gave me 2 Saturday schools. I wrote to my state senator, and he actually wrote me and my teacher and informed me that I was right and told my teacher I was right. When that letter got to the teacher that day, he gave me 2 more Saturday schools. My 9th grade history teacher asked me and 3 other general ed special needs students to stand up in class. She then belittled us by saying, "I do not need nor want them in my class." That discussion came up because the teacher was openly discussing the No Child Left Behind Act in our classroom and asked our class if it was fair that we were allowed in class with them, but didn't have to test as well as them on the proficiency test to move ahead. Older students held me down and smeared ketchup and mashed potatoes in my hair and stuff, in my face, and they said not to mess with the school. Because our schools in Royal, Ohio are the bread and butter of the community. At my IEP meeting, like a month later after that incident, I had tested well enough to be put into an advanced English class my freshman year. But the teacher of that class stated at my IEP meeting that my disability was holding back the other students. My mom asked for an example and she could not give any. I was being placed in ISS almost every school day. I spent 35 consecutive days in a storage, what used to be a storage room under the weight room in the basement of my school. It was concrete and there's 2 metal doors that were padlocked from the outside. There was no windows and no heat. And the only person who had a key to that padlock was the principal. You could scream in there, no one would hear you. Most students did not even know I was present at school that day. They'd see me at the end of the day getting on the bus and they'd be like, "Where was you all day?" "In the basement." I remember I was in study skills one time and I heard my friend in there and he wasn't allowed out and he was saying, "I need to use the bathroom, I need to use the bathroom." And he defecated and urinated on himself. And he never came back to school after that. After I spent 35 days in there, ODE ordered no more ISS for me at the 3rd due process hearing in January of 2004. 1 week later, my vice principal came to my science class where I was taking a test and asked me to join him in the hallway, so I did. And I walked out there. He told me I needed to report to the ISS room, seclusion room. And I calmly reminded him that I was supposed to call my mom or attorney if this happened again. And I turned to walk away from him to go back to class because that's what I was told to do. They told me not to engage or argue in any way. But he slammed me up against the wall, arm-barred me across the throat and lifted up so I couldn't breathe, and then whispered, "How am I supposed to talk to you nice and slow so you can understand?" At that moment, I truly thought that I was going to die, so I asked God to make it fast. But he let go, and then they put me in the back of a van with my truant officer and school secretary. They took me into the superintendent and special needs director's office. And the superintendent said, "I feel sorry for you because you have no future." And then there was a knock on the door. And then I guess I blacked out because I was traumatized because I don't remember the rest of the day. But apparently that knock at the door was my stepdad because another student had alerted them that they dragged me into the elementary. And that was my last day of school. And later that night, I did try and take my own life. And that's when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And after that incident, and from January 2004, for 6 months, I did not even step a foot outside my house. I did not socialize, and my skin never, ever saw sunlight. That was my school experience. People always are like, "Why didn't your mom just pull you out?" And why should she have? There's a law that says that I'm allowed to be there. She was fighting for my rights. When I went to that school, they took away all of my confidence that my mom took years to instill in me. My sister was the valedictorian of her graduating class and has a PhD now from Ohio State University, and she had ADD. She was fortunate that she never had to go to that school, and I wish that I could be like everybody else in my family. I can't.
Being nonverbal for your whole life is something that I cannot imagine ever having to do. My son Andre has had to live with being nonverbal his entire life. And his entire life is spent trying to communicate his wants, desires, needs to the people around him using communication systems that are at best inadequate. I can only imagine what it's like even one day to need or want something and to try to get that across to somebody and be unsuccessful. And so if you're unsuccessful enough times, you start to get aggravated. And then if you get aggravated enough and people are still not responding, it just gets, it cycles higher and higher, and before you know it, my son will just like lash out at you and say, not verbally, but with his body language, pay attention to what I'm trying to tell you or show you. About the time that he was 13 years old, it became very difficult for us to manage him at home. There was one particular day, and we had sort of seen this coming, where I came home from work and my son had basically overpowered my wife, and it became time to have him hospitalized. And so he was hospitalized for about a year and a half, and in the course of that time, there were a few instances where he had to be put into a prone restraint. But it was not a regularly occurring thing. It was sort of an emergency situation. As time went on, and insurance companies were sort of pushing that he could not stay in the hospital anymore, the search began for a placement in the community. And so we ended up going to this new placement for a trial, a 3-month trial. And in the course of the 3 months, we found out later he was in at least 30 some odd prone restraints. We were not told of any of these restraints, but what ended up happening is that we go to visit him daily. And one particular day, we went to see my son, and we were going to give him a haircut. So we took off his shirt, and he was covered with bruises and abrasions, 15 to 20 on his body, everywhere. So we started to dig into, what's going on here? What's the story? They assured me that it was okay because they decided to stop restraining him. So that was a red flag for us, because how can you decide if it's supposed to be an emergency measure? Why are you making a decision to start or to stop restraining at all? He went 15 years and was restrained maybe twice. Then he went to one setting and he was restrained 30 some odd times in a 3-month period. He left that setting and then he hasn't been restrained since, or maybe a couple of times when they were emergencies. So that shows to me that Andre was not the problem. The problem was the setting, and something was going on in that setting that was wrong. It's a powerless feeling to a great degree, because it gets communicated to us as Andre was aggressive without any detail in terms of what led to the aggression, what were the environmental things going on at the time, what did Andre do before that, what was going on in the classroom, what were other kids doing. All that sort of information is really, really valuable, but it's impossible for a parent to do anything about it unless you have that information on hand. So to me, the flow of information back to families is a crucial piece to trying to get rid of this kind of intervention.
Then just get your rhythm. And so by her rhythm, then I want you to do the initiation, which you do awesome with.
In years of private placements, aversive interventions permeated I. It was power overt on I, and I was septic pointed to seclusion. It was brooded power gyred by purses wrongfully called teachers, trying to beat I. This war wasted my rest. The sweet in I evaporated out. Massed frets gestate tread of fears, tears nutty, years of lasting hell. Rest in a child is treasured peace. Each time a child is locked up, it is heard as heartbreak. Troubled tears see feasibility of freedom estimated denied. Yes, rest ignored me as I'm locked away in hidden rooms that pointed loudly, I'm worthless. I wanted to tell the agony, but I could not. Feeling I'm gum in gutter. I'm traumatized. I'm sad. It is the very keyed lock that I'm feared. It made me littered in less, freezed in tears, lit ill, desirer of death. I wanted tears to melt, but my heart fears I'm next in returned to closet. With each looming locking, part of me is pity killed. I'm hit, I'm hung low, I'm messy molested. I'm each dawn jittery still. I'm trying to heal, but locks re-torture. No certain child should greet locks. It was 22 wasting years, befretting irregulared I was. I'm very going insane by news I'm freak. I needed their help. Yet they pointed I to locked up. Fright opted I timid, silent, and unable to fight back, telling myself sweet lies that the tortures did not matter. I'm now pleased to be freeing my heart of seeds of pity, trying I am to like me. I'm seeing my heart heal, wonders fill. Try to see potent, powerful potentials in each pierced person. There you will free their gifts. There I can feel I'm treasured. There, nary I'm fret. I'm ready. Are you? Try, please.
The next time you meet someone with a disability, and they appear odd to you, maybe you should wonder if they were abused too. Most of us who have ever been in segregated classes in American schools have been.
They didn't teach me anything. I want to read, but I can't. I want to spell, but I can't. Basically, the only thing I did at school was get restraint, and that's it. I never learned a thing.
There has to be a law that says it's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen to the next generation. My future was taken from me.
The secret, I think, is that schools, agencies need to learn about the people that they support, and they just can't support them with a one-size-fits-all recipe and expect it to work. They need to individualize the programs for each child.
My great heart, fasted from feeling no worth for years, needed oiling, needed kind understanding and support.
May I please ask Miss Peyton Goddard and Miss Holly and Martin to come to the podium. Cuyamaca College valedictorian for 2002, Peyton Goddard. Thank you.
Though elusive, the journey to peace, potently pondered by each person and people, is possibility and great desire. Let us point to the heart, pursuing peak peace in path each and together.